I didn't really understand how deeply racialized our politics was.
In 1964, when you were a young teenager, the revolution happened. So how was that?
Yeah. But I guess just another thing we didn't understand really, or I didn't understand as a child growing into adolescence, I didn't really understand how deeply racialized our politics was. There is, as with everybody, I suppose, there is a sort of a certain degree of delusional storytelling about these things, about how peaceful communities are, how they get on with each other, this kind of thing. And I think the revolution was a complete surprise to somebody like me. Perhaps it wasn't to everybody, but I think it was to a lot of people. In other words, the violence is unleashed, and the terror that followed the successful revolt was just incomprehensible. It wasn't something that was there all along. It seemed that all of a sudden we were exposed to something really quite grotesque that we hadn't known was within us. I think something similar to this happened with Uganda and Idi Amin, who actually came afterwards in the very late 60s and early 70s. Uganda seemed such a peaceful, gentle country when I visited as an adolescent, such courteous people. And then you have this. And I think it teaches us something about the capacity for meanness and cruelty also that lurks behind our good stories about ourselves. It was terrifying to actually address your question directly. That is, it was terrifying, that period after the revolution. I mean, in terms of people getting killed and imprisoned, expelled, just degraded and humiliated in all kinds of ways that you could imagine. So that was what it was like.
And so when you were 17, 18, you and your brother decided to leave, and you had to leave illegally. What was there one precipitating thing for your flight, or how did it come about?
People were being forced to leave, not people of my age, but older people were being forced to leave because one of the things that was introduced, as it were, was foreigners, this idea of people who were made foreign in some way by the rhetoric of the revolution. They weren't, but this was part of whoever they didn't want became a foreigner. So there was already a kind of movement going on, movement of people leaving or being forced to leave, or leaving because they were afraid, or because their livelihood was taken away, so they had to go somewhere else to find a livelihood. Say, for example, the Indian community was subjected to this kind of persecution, and most of them left and either went to the mainland or went further to India or indeed elsewhere. So it wasn't a kind of a revolutionary idea, as it were, to say, okay, we're going to go. For us, I think it was, or for me anyway, it was not because I was being threatened in a personal way, but because there was no further studying possible. And I could not see, and of course the climate was terrifying, and the prohibitions were endless. And I was 18. And when you're 18, you think, I'm not staying here, I can't put up with this. I'm going to go off and find something, to do that will fulfill me and make me whatever. So I was in that sort of spirit, that the spirit of kind of reckless kind of adventure, but wasn't just adventure. It was thinking about the future as well, without realizing the cost.
And education.
Yeah. I mean, not education for any particular reason. It wasn't like I want to be this. That's what I want to do. It's just you got to do something with yourself. You can't just sort of go around. Yeah, it was things like that. Without really understanding fully what what you're abandoning and what you're leaving behind, or indeed what you're going to. It was just this sense of, let's get out of here.
I think you do that beautifully in your first novel, Memory of Departure, which describes the teenage boy Hassan, and he's struggling to be educated, and he is longing to get away from the restrictive government. But he has other things that he wants to get away. He's clearly not you. He wants to get away from a very brutal father, but also the world he inhabits is a very brutal one. But you only see him at the very end. He's on a boat, and you have no idea what's going to happen to him. There must have been a little spirit of the young Abdulrazak in Hassan.
Well, probably more than a little, but it's on the other hand, it's not really a story about, say, my family or something like that.
No. But need, that driving need for the young man.
Yes. And in other ways, perhaps too, in that the train journey, which is in the second half of that novel, was one of the most exciting things that I did as an adolescent, or that we did, my brother and I. In the days when you could still travel, it was after the revolution, but you could still travel within the East African nations as well, because in those days there was the East African Economic Community. It was still in existence, and travel was unrestricted between the three East African nations, or four. Anyway, so we took this train journey from Dar es Salaam all the way to Kampala, which took 3 days. Not continuous days, but sort of, and it was just such a memorable, wonderful journey that I just had to write about it in the novel. So things like that were true to my experience, but many of those were things that I observed and, on reflection, was appalled by. Like domestic violence, or like cruelty against children and women, and these ideas, or rather these concerns, have been throughout my writing, I think.
If you've enjoyed the conversation that you just heard, do subscribe to our channel for much more.